When you visit an ancient ruin, you think you're looking directly into the past. But what if that feeling is an illusion? What if some of the most famous ancient sites on Earth aren't really ancient at all, but modern reconstructions quietly reshaped, stabilised, and reimagined in the last century? Because the truth is, when you stand at these places, Stonehenge, Chichén Itzá, Machu Picchu, you're not seeing the past, you're seeing a modern interpretation of it. Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Michael. I have a degree in ancient history, and on this channel, we discuss the unexplainable mysteries of our past. Let's get into it.
Most people believe that the ancient ruins we visit are preserved exactly as time left them, untouched, authentic, a direct window into the deep past. But what if large parts of what you're seeing aren't actually ancient at all? Let's take Stonehenge, one of the most famous ancient sites in the world. These huge stones have stood exactly where they are for thousands of years, untouched since their ancient builders mysteriously raised them, right?
Well, not exactly. In fact, the Stonehenge we see today isn't actually what was originally found at all. Instead, what we see is a modern reconstruction, an interpretation of the site that was made by 20th century archaeologists.
See, in 1901, one of the tallest stones at Stonehenge was straightened and set in concrete. Then, in 1920, 6 more stones were given concrete footings. Next, in 1958, engineers used cranes to lift the Great Trilithon, these 2 huge stones and a lintel that had been lying collapsed since 1797. Again, it was reassembled and embedded in concrete. By 1964, inspectors had secured 3 more stones in the outer circle using modern foundations. By this point, practically the whole site had been rearranged by modern hands. But English Heritage made a decision not to include this work in official guides. It's rarely foregrounded in visitor-facing material. The audio tour doesn't explain it. One guidebook mentions it, but only if you squint hard enough and use a magnifying glass. Visitors aren't told that many of the stones visible today were repositioned, straightened, or embedded in concrete during the 20th century. Thus, what you're seeing at Stonehenge isn't the Bronze Age arrangement. It's a 20th century stabilization project designed to prevent collapse.
Now, this isn't fraud, it's conservation. But conservation requires choices. Which stones go where? Which phase of history gets restored? Which interpretation becomes official?
But if Stonehenge, one of the most famous monuments on Earth, has been systematically reconstructed without many people knowing about it, what about everywhere else? Well, you may be surprised to hear that this happens all over the place. Let's head to Mexico and take Chichen Itza's pyramid, for example. It looks pretty much perfect in photographs. It's got 4 symmetrical sides, sharp stone edges, and serpent heads at the base of the stairway. It's one of the most photographed structures in the Americas. But that perfection is pretty misleading too. Only 2 sides of the pyramid were actually restored to perfect looking level. The other 2 are in rougher condition, and the restoration itself wasn't based on archaeological evidence. In 1922, a restorer named Miguel Angel Fernandez began stabilization work using only original stones from the ruins. He worked slowly, methodically, preserving what was there. But then, the Mexican government presented him with reconstruction plans. However, the plans weren't based on evidence of how the pyramid originally looked. They were composites, design elements copied from other Maya sites, assembled into a version of what the government wanted Chichen Itza to look like. Fernandez was outraged. He refused and then left the project, but the reconstruction went ahead anyway. Large portions of the pyramid were rebuilt from scratch using newly cut stone. Missing architectural elements were recreated based on educated guesses. Even the temple at the top was reconstructed, and once it was finished, it was presented to the world as an ancient monument, with pretty much no indication of how much of it was modern. But in reality, it is a modern reconstruction that's been photographed so many times it's become the canonical image of Maya architecture.
And once you realize that many of the most famous sites on Earth are just like this, it forces a much bigger question. Not about Stonehenge, not about Chichen Itza, but about what we actually mean when we say the ancient world.
So who decides what gets reconstructed and how? You might assume it's archaeologists making purely scientific choices, but unfortunately, archaeology doesn't happen in a vacuum. Every excavation, every restoration, every conservation project requires funding, and excavating a major site costs millions. For example, Machu Picchu's stabilisation and reconstruction work requires constant financial investment. Angkor Wat's causeway restoration involved international funding and years of labour. These projects get funded because they produce something tangible, but it's not historical research. It's restored structures, visitor access, clear public benefit, that kind of stuff. But there's a problem. Conservation and excavation are expensive, and they come with a constraint that doesn't exist in most other fields. Once you dig, you can't undo it. You remove context, you disturb layers, and you eliminate opportunities for future researchers with better technology. That's why UNESCO promotes excavational economy, the idea that you should only disturb what you absolutely must, and leave areas untouched for the future. Ethically, that makes sense, but practically, it creates a problem. Sites that are easier to excavate, easier to stabilize, and easier to explain to the public are far easier to fund. Agencies prefer projects with predictable outcomes, projects where there are clear deliverables and not much risk to worry about, which means some sites get worked on again and again, while others are left untouched.
And that's only the first problem, because even once a site is excavated, not every interpretation survives.
Academic careers depend on publishing research that can make it through peer review, and peer review doesn't reward radical uncertainty. If your finding supports the consensus, the process is probably going to be pretty smooth. But if they challenge established timelines or assumptions, the burden of proof changes. Reviewers ask for more data, more corroboration, more certainty. Papers documenting unexpected results get sent back again and again, not because they're wrong, but because they're disruptive. Which means over time, the interpretations that survive review get cited. The ones that get cited become standard, and once those interpretations make it into textbooks and museum displays, they're extremely difficult to overturn, even when we find important new evidence.
But there's a third problem, and it dwarfs anything to do with funding or the careers of those involved. This is the tourism machine.
Heritage tourism generates over $600 billion every single year. It's projected to reach almost $800 billion by 2030. Greece's archaeological sites generated $193 million in 2024 alone. Machu Picchu receives 1.5 million visitors every year. Angkor Wat brings in tens of millions for Cambodia's economy. These sites employ thousands of people, fund regional infrastructure, and define national branding. Essentially, what that means is visitor experience becomes the priority, not research. You've got famous sites generating tourism. Tourism then generates funding, and that funding pays for restoration. Meanwhile, sites that aren't photogenic, aren't easy to access, aren't already famous, they just kind of stagnate. Even if they are historically significant, even if they could rewrite our understanding of the past. In some senses, archaeology has become less about discovery and more about managing tourist sites. The places we visit aren't chosen because they're the most historically important, they're chosen because they bring in money and pay for themselves. Or another way of putting it is this: the version of history we encounter is shaped by what tourists are actually willing to pay to see. Everything we choose to restore is heavily influenced by tourism money. That is the uncomfortable truth.
But tourism doesn't just determine which sites get funding, it also actively damages the sites it's supposed to preserve. I mean, how are you supposed to protect a structure that's being visited by millions of people every year?
Pompeii implemented a 20,000 visitor daily cap in November 2024. The site was deteriorating from sheer foot traffic, and in fact, in 2010, the School of Gladiators collapsed. Investigators found that earlier repairs had made things worse. Cement mortar used in the 1960s doesn't breathe. It traps moisture inside the structure. Combined with water infiltration and pressure from unexcavated material behind the walls, the building had been slowly weakening for decades. The restoration meant to preserve it had actually made it more vulnerable. Machu Picchu faces the same problem. Peru implemented timed entry tickets and raised entrance fees. They wanted to manage the flow of visitors and generate revenue for ongoing stabilization work. The site requires constant modern intervention, i.e. altering the ancient site, just to survive the tourism that funds it. Thus, the more successful a site becomes as a tourist destination, the more money it generates. but then the more damage it sustains. Thus, the more money is spent to protect, or in other words, change the site, the more tourists are able to come, and the cycle continues. And there's another problem too. Most of that money doesn't stay local. International hotel chains, foreign tour operators, and digital booking platforms all take their cut. Research shows that in developing regions, tourism leakage can reach 70% or more. The money flows through, but much of it never reaches the sites or the communities around them, which makes you wonder, if the sites we're preserving are being destroyed by the act of preserving them, then what exactly are we saving?
And there's still one more constraint that arguably matters even more than all of those combined. Most archaeological sites, even the most famous ones, are barely excavated at all. And that's not an accident.
Over 80% of Babylon is untouched, despite 18 years of intensive German excavations, starting in 1899, using 200 workers operating 6 days a week. What they dug was the Ishtar Gate, the palaces, the major temples, the monumental architecture. But the residential quarters, the commercial areas, the places where 99% of people actually lived, they're still underground. Or Göbekli Tepe, which has been excavated continuously for 31 years, but only 5 to 10% of the site has actually been touched. The archaeological sites we think we understand are mostly unexamined. The residential life, the common people, the everyday evidence that would complicate the traditionally elite-focused narratives is invisible.
And that means that our current understanding of ancient civilizations isn't just filtered by money, career risk, and tourism incentives, it's also based on a tiny, highly selective sample of what actually once existed.
Now, you might think that after 100 years of excavation, major sites are fully known, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Recently, archaeologists working at Tanis in Egypt discovered 225 Ushabti figurines in an untouched tomb chamber. The chamber definitively identified the burial of Pharaoh Shoshenq III, whose expected burial location had remained mysterious for over 80 years. Egyptian officials said it still holds secrets we haven't found yet, and this is a site that's been worked on since 1921. At Angkor Wat, LiDAR surveys revealed an entire metropolitan area hidden beneath jungle vegetation, hundreds of temples, urban planning covering thousands of square kilometers. The site went from being understood as a religious center to a mega-urban civilization, and that happened without digging a single new trench. We just had better technology showing what was there. Ancient DNA is doing the same thing. Museum collections stored for decades are being reanalyzed with modern techniques, and the results are overturning interpretations we thought were settled. A great example is the Beachy Head woman, discovered in the 1950s. She was initially interpreted as sub-Saharan African, based on early genetic analysis, but updated DNA techniques in 2024 showed she was actually local to Roman-era Britain. The interpretation was wrong for decades. Thus, every new technology, every unexcavated area explored, every stored collection that gets reanalyzed has the potential to completely flip everything we thought we knew.
And that raises a really big question. If the past keeps changing every time we look closer, how much of what we currently believe is simply a result of looking at the wrong evidence?
So when you visit Stonehenge, or Chichén Itzá, or Machu Picchu, you're not seeing the past as it was. You're seeing a version of the past, a version shaped by 20th century engineering decisions, government tourism strategies, and funding constraints, and by what could be safely excavated without destroying what lay underneath. That version isn't false, but it is incomplete. Every decade, new technology reveals something that forces us to reinterpret what we thought we understood. LiDAR shows us cities we never knew were there. DNA rewrites identities we thought were settled. Entire sections of history change because we finally looked in the right place. And yet, most archaeological sites are still, for the most part, untouched. The homes, the workshops, the streets, the everyday lives of the vast majority of people who actually lived in these civilizations. They're still underground. Not because we've chosen to ignore them, but because excavating them is expensive, risky, and often unrewarding in modern terms. And there's no guarantee we'll ever fund the work needed to uncover it. So when you combine all these factors, you realize that when you visit a historical site or read a textbook, you are getting a version of the past that has been presented for a number of different factors. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but it doesn't mean it's the full story either. Archaeology is one of humanity's greatest achievements, but it's not omniscient. It cannot see what time erased. The real question is not whether archaeologists are hiding something, it's whether our past was far larger, messier, and more complex than these tiny fragments have allowed us to see, and whether we are ready to admit that.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving it a like, a comment, or subscribing to my channel down below. I'll see you next time.